praying if this relationship is God's will until you understand this about your divine relationship design. Have you ever wondered why relationship decisions can seem so confusing in spite of all your prayer and preparation? What if discerning God's choice for your relationship isn't about more praying, but about understanding your unique design? I've noticed something in my work with purpose driven singles. Many have done the work, they've grown spiritually, they are devoted in their prayer, but they still struggle with making decisions or understanding God's choice as it relates to their relationships. Today, I'm sharing a perspective that has changed relationship clarity for many, understanding your divine relationship design. I'm going to walk you through why traditional discernment practices often fail and what you can do instead. Welcome or welcome back to Love Elevated TV. I'm Arnitris L. Strong, Kingdom Marriage Preparation Expert, helping you to shift your single season from a season of passive waiting to a season of active preparation. Let's talk about three discernment practices that often cause more confusion than clarity. First, we're often told to follow the peace. We are looking for relationships that feel peaceful to us. But many times we're settling for relationships that feel peaceful because they're meeting our general expectations. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where the relationship felt peaceful in the beginning, but as time went on, you realized that the relationship was filled with so much turmoil? Maybe it's because you weren't looking beneath the surface for what really matters for your relationship success. Second, we're told to focus on being equally yoked, but what does that actually mean for your specific relationship success? Normally, when we think about that passage of scripture, we're thinking about being equally yoked or not being unequally yoked with non believers. But in order for a relationship to be successful, it has to have more in common than just a shared faith. Third, we're told to seek godly counsel, only to receive conflicting advice. One mentor says yes, the other mentor says no. And here's the problem that these approaches all have in common: they're too general. They don't take into account your individual needs that will determine how a relationship is successful or how you feel relationship success should look. So, what's the missing element? Your unique relationship design. God has created each of us with a unique relationship success pattern. These are things that align with our life pattern, with our purpose, and with our calling. And when all of these elements are in alignment, we achieve relationship success. Think about it. Your calling is unique, your purpose is unique, your life process is unique. The way that you arrive at decisions are all unique. Why would your relationship success pattern be generic? Purpose driven singles have specific patterns that predict relationship fulfillment based on their unique needs. Verse 4 and 7 tells us, in all our getting, to get an understanding. Understanding your divine relationship design only enhances your discernment. When you know what actually matters for your relationship success, your discernment becomes abundantly clear. I once dated a guy. Upon initial meeting, I wasn't really interested. I didn't think we had a lot in common, but he was persistent in his pursuit. When we started to spend time together, we started to talk, and the more we talked, I learned that we had some of the same shared values, and so I decided that I was going to give him a chance. In fact, our first date was a watch night service for New Year's Eve. We went to church. We had an amazing time worshiping, and then we went out to breakfast afterwards. If you ever gone to watch night service, then you know that by the time you get out, it's now the New Year's after midnight. We settled into a bit of a routine. We were spending time together. Every weekend we would get together and things seemed to be going well. We would talk every morning on my way to work. We would talk on my lunch break. We would talk again that in the evening before I went to bed for the night. And one day, randomly, he said, I don't want a relationship. And I remember being confused. I'm like, wait a minute. We're doing all of the things that one would identify with a relationship. Where is this coming from? And he said, I told you that I didn't want a relationship. And I knew for sure that he never told me that he did not want a relationship because I would not have settled into a routine with him. And if he had told me initially that he did not want a relationship, I probably never would have gone out on the first date with him. And it was so interesting that he tried to twist that to say, I told you that I didn't want a relationship. I knew that that was a lie, and I started to pull back after that. So, like I told you, we're in a routine. I would talk to him every morning. He would call me. He knew what time I was dropping my kids off at school. He would call me right around the time I was on my way to work, had a little bit of a commute to work, and he would call me. The morning after we had that conversation about him not wanting a relationship, when he called me, I didn't answer the phone. I didn't feel like talking. I was trying to gather my thoughts, and I just didn't feel like talking. When I got to work, I didn't call him on my lunch break either. When he called me on my lunch break, I didn't answer. And by the time I had gotten back to work, he had called me and left a message for me at work. And I never gave him my work phone number. It was really odd. I came back to work and my coworker gave me the message and I was like, oh my God, he sounds really amazing. Tell me about him. I'm thinking, he ain't all that amazing. Wasn't truthful about what it was that he wanted. Got a little bit flattered that he went out of his way to find my number at work, but that was just his way of reeling me back in. But this man was a believer. We had the same faith. We believed Jesus came to earth to save us. He died for our sins. We believed in the concepts of heaven and hell. We had shared beliefs. But that's what was really important to me is that we were both working toward a committed relationship that would lead to marriage. And that's not what he wanted. And maybe it could be have been that after he spent time with me, he realized that I didn't fit what he wanted in a mate for a committed relationship, which is fine. We all have our specific things that we desire in a mate, which is fine. But the problem that I had was that he framed it like he told me from the beginning that he did not want a relationship, and I somehow got confused. And it made me wonder what else he wasn't completely honest about. I think that he knew that he told me from the beginning that he wasn't looking for a relationship, I never would have spent time with him at all. And what I learned is that not shortly after we stopped seeing each other, he got into a committed relationship. And so what I learned was that it wasn't that he didn't want a committed relationship. It was that he didn't want a committed relationship with me. He was fine with getting all of the benefits of a relationship without having that title. And so that was a real eye-opening experience for me because I learned, wait a minute, it takes more than just having this shared faith. We have to align on something a little bit deeper than that. So how do you begin to recognize your divine relationship design? The first thing that you want to do is you want to take a look at your relationship history. I call it your relationship resume. And many times when we think about our relationship resume, we think about all of the things that didn't go right. And while those things are important, it's just as important to think about the things that actually went well. Think about the things that you want to recreate in a future relationship. Think about the things that you have not experienced yet that you would love to experience. So the first step that you want to do is you want to take an assessment of your past relationships and figure out those things, the things that went well, the things that did not go well, and the things that you haven't experienced yet but you would like to. So you want to ask yourself, in relationships that went well, what were the factors that consistently went well? Was it communication style? Was it synergy with your daily routines? Was it shared purpose and passions? All of those things are going to be indicators to your unique success patterns. The second thing that you want to consider is your current lifestyle, your calling, and your purpose. How should a relationship fit into your calling as you see it today? Because this is going to always be evolving. But how will a relationship fit into your unique lifestyle? If you're like me, your children are older, they are in college or out of the house, and so now you're settling into a routine. If you invite someone else into your life, how would you like them to fit into your life in a way that it doesn't disrupt your lifestyle, the ways that you have it set up? How would you like it to fit into your life's calling? I believe that a part of my life's calling is working with purpose driven singles just like you to help them to elevate their single season from a season of passive waiting to a season of active preparation. And so the relationship for me has to be a relationship where my guy is comfortable with the time that I devote to my YouTube video. So the time that I devote outside of my 9 to 5 to my client, the time that I devote to traveling or a speaking engagement. All of those things have to be taken into consideration. I talk about that now because I remember when I first started out as a blogger and I wasn't sure where it was going long before I even got certified as a relationship coach. Talking about relationship was nowhere on my radar. But I was seeing a guy one time, and anytime we had a disagreement, he would always say, "Now go write about that on your blog." And the way that he said it was kind of mean and degrading and condescending, but it was so weird because I wasn't even talking about relationships, not love or romantic relationships anyway. I was talking about mother-daughter relationships. And so maybe he saw something that I didn't see, but it was interesting because I began to understand the more time that I spent, the brand trips that I was being invited on and different functions and things, and the more followers that I got, or more engagement that I got, she started to say those kinds of things more and more. And I understood that this is a relationship where if I am going to be in it, I'm going to have to either get comfortable with this kind of silent competition or I was going to have to pull back on the things that I was pursuing. I wasn't willing to pull back on the things that I was pursuing. And so we just kind of let the relationship go. But that is something that a lot of people don't really consider when they consider their relationships. Because maybe you have been seeing someone who just wants to spend lazy weekends at home. But part of your life's purpose is traveling for speaking engagements or doing workshops, so you have to do interviews. That's going to cause friction in your relationship. So that's why it's so important to understand your unique design so that you're not wasting time getting to know people, forming relationships and attachments with someone who will not fit into your life. The third thing that you want to think about are your deepest values that go beyond surface level preferences. Think about the specific elements of relationships that have either created a space for peace or a space for friction despite having shared values or spiritual compatibility. Once you begin to understand and recognize your divine relationship design, it changes how you approach relationships entirely. Instead of vague peace, you start to look for alignment with your specific pattern. And let's talk a little bit about peace because many times what we think is peace is not actually peace, it's actually comfort or the familiar. Because I will never forget when Honey and I first got together, there was so much peace. There was no drama, there was no friction, there were no major disagreements. But I remember feeling so unsettled because in all of my past relationships, they were filled with drama. There was always this kind of push and pull. There was always one day he would be nice and loving and attentive, and then I may not hear from him for a day or two. But there was none of that in this relationship, and I felt so unsettled. I remember just always wondering when the other shoe was going to drop, but it never did. I could literally set my watch to the honey. I knew that he would call me in the morning on his way to work, or he would text me in the morning on his way to work. I had to be to work really, really early in the morning, so normally I would still be sleeping, but I would wake up and he would have texted me good morning. I talked to him around lunchtime. I talked to him again on his way home from work and again at dinner, and then we always had plans on the weekend. He was so predictable, but I couldn't. To me, and coming from relationships where I couldn't predict from one day to the next how it was going to be, it felt a little bit unsettling. So a lot of times, what we confuse as peace is really just more of the same that we've always experienced. So I had to push myself through that discomfort to understand that honestly, this is what you needed. It's what you've always needed. And this is what real peace is. Instead of the vague, equally yoked, you want to consider things beyond the shared value. I consider the fact that because I work a 9 to 5, a lot of my filming is done late at night when my house is quiet. Honey's usually in the bed before 11 o'clock. And so that allows me time to do the filming that I need to do the editing, to do the posting, to do the commenting that doesn't take away from our relationship time. And then the other thing is that instead of seeking conflicting counsel, you're going to start to filter your decisions through your patterns lenses. I had friends who would encourage me for years to stay in relationships where I wasn't being treated the way that I deserved to be treated. I wanted more, but they would encourage me to stay in that relationship. And it was on and off for several years. And when I finally broke free, I had two different friends who told me, I never liked him for you. And it was so interesting to me because you didn't like him for me. You understood that I deserved better than I was getting, but you also encouraged me to stay in those relationships. Isn't that odd? But when I determined what was important for me, then I didn't have to seek out counsel from someone else whether this was a good fit for me because I had already gone through whatever my criteria was, determine whether it was a fit for my life or not. And that is the peace, the real peace that I want you to have when you truly understand what your unique relationship design is, what relationship success means to you. This is beyond looking at other relationships as relationship goals because your relationship goals are unique to your life. So, one simple step that you can take today toward understanding your divine relationship design is to start a divine relationship design journal. In this journal, you're going to take some time to do a past relationship assessment and jot down those things that went really well. Jot down the things that did not go well. Jot down some of the things that you may have never experienced in a relationship, but you would like to. I'm developing something called the Divine Relationship Design Method that will help you to identify these things with precision. But journaling is a good start. And your divine relationship design elevates confusion to clarity. When you know exactly what matters for your relationship design, it makes it easier for you to discern God's choices for your relationship. You're going to start to choose relationships that will support and complement your purpose and your calling. This isn't about lowering your standards or ignoring spiritual discernment. It is about bringing your standards and your discernment into complete alignment with your unique design. Next week, I'm sharing more about the specific patterns that I have identified and how they influence your relationship decisions. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. In the comments, I would love to hear what has been your biggest challenge with relationship discernment. I'll be sure to respond to each and every comment. Until next time, remember, clarity comes not from more information, but from the right information for your divine relationship design. I'll see you in the next video.